Think about the last time someone asked you, "Are you okay?" And you smiled. And you said, "Yeah, I'm fine." But you weren't fine. Not even close. Maybe you were exhausted in a way sleep can't fix. Maybe something had been sitting on your chest for weeks. Maybe you were quietly falling apart, and nobody knew, because you made sure they didn't. Here's what's strange. You didn't lie to protect yourself. You smiled to protect them. From the discomfort of your pain. From the burden of your truth. And the worst part? You've done this so many times, it doesn't even feel like a choice anymore. It just feels like who you are. But it's not who you are. It's what you learned. And today, we're going to trace exactly how that learning happened and what it's quietly doing to you right now. Picture this. You're at a gathering. Friends, family, colleagues, people who care about you. There's laughter. Someone's telling a story. Music is playing softly in the background. And you're sitting there, present in body, somewhere else entirely in mind. There's something heavy inside you. Could be grief. Could be loneliness. Could be a formless sadness you couldn't name, even if you tried. But you sit there, and when someone catches your eye across the room, you do it automatically. You smile. They smile back. They move on. And you sit with your untouched drink, feeling somehow more alone than if you'd stayed home. Later that night, someone texts you. It was so good to see you, you seemed happy. And you stare at the screen for a long time. Because part of you is relieved, and part of you is devastated. If this sounds familiar, not as an occasional thing, but as a pattern, as your default mode, then what we're about to explore isn't just interesting. It's about you. Psychologists have a name for what we're describing. It's called emotional masking, and it's more common than almost any other coping mechanism researchers study. Emotional masking is when your outward expression, your face, your words, your energy, doesn't match what's actually happening inside you. You feel one thing, you show another, and over time, the gap between those two things becomes so practiced, so automatic, that you stop noticing it yourself. But here's what most people get wrong about this. They think it's about hiding. It's not. Emotional masking isn't about deception. It's about survival. At some point in your life, probably much earlier than you realize, you learned that your pain was a problem. Not for you, for others. You learned that when you expressed how you really felt, something uncomfortable happened. Someone got overwhelmed. Someone got angry. Someone shut down. Someone left. And your young, pattern-seeking brain made a quiet calculation. The cost of showing pain is higher than the cost of hiding it. So you smiled. And it worked. The tension dissolved. The moment passed. You were safe. And you never really stopped. Here's where it gets deeper. That smile, the one you give when you're hurting, isn't fake. Not entirely. There's something real in it. A genuine desire to connect. A genuine wish that things were lighter. A genuine attempt to hold yourself together in a world that feels like it moves too fast for honesty. But there's a psychological cost to chronic emotional masking that most people never account for. When you consistently suppress what you feel, you don't eliminate the emotion. Emotions don't disappear because you decide not to show them. They go underground. They get stored in the body, in the tension in your shoulders, in the tightness in your chest, in the exhaustion you feel after being around people, even when nothing happened. Researchers call this emotional labor, the invisible work of managing how you appear to the world. And just like any labor, it depletes you. It takes energy, real, measurable, psychological energy. Energy that was supposed to go toward healing, toward creativity, toward connection. And here's the cruelest irony of emotional masking. The more successfully you do it, the more invisible your pain becomes. Not just to others, but to yourself. You become so good at the performance that you stop trusting your own internal signals. You feel something dark rising, and your first instinct isn't to ask, "What is this?" It's to suppress it before anyone notices. including you. Let's make this concrete. There's the person who just went through a painful breakup. 3 days later, they're back at work, sharp, professional, cracking jokes in the meeting. Everyone thinks they're handling it so well. What everyone doesn't see is that they sit in their car for 20 minutes before going inside, just breathing, just trying to remember what normal feels like. There's the parent who is quietly drowning, overwhelmed, touched out, lonely in a house full of people. But every morning they make breakfast and ask the kids about their day with a warmth that costs them something they can't name, because the alternative feels unthinkable. Who would they be if they fell apart? There's the friend who always shows up for everyone, whose phone is always answered, who always knows what to say, who has never once, in all the years you've known them, told you they were struggling. Not really. Not fully. And there's you, reading this right now, recognizing something, maybe recognizing yourself in more than one of those examples. Because emotional masking doesn't have one face. It lives in the person who laughs loudest at the party and drives home in total silence. It lives in the person who says, "I'm just tired," when they mean, "I'm breaking." It lives in the person who writes, "I'm okay," in the chat at 2 a.m., and then stares at the ceiling until 4. Now, here's the part that changes things. You've probably heard that emotional masking is bad, that you should open up more, be vulnerable, let people in, and maybe you've tried, and maybe it felt impossible, or dangerous, or just deeply unnatural. Here's why. Because nobody told you the most important thing. You're not broken for masking. You're not weak. You're not emotionally stunted or damaged beyond repair. You're adaptive. Emotional masking, in its origin, was intelligent. It was your nervous system doing exactly what it was designed to do, reading the environment, calculating the safest response, and protecting you. The problem isn't that you developed this skill. The problem is that you're still using a survival tool in situations that are no longer dangerous. The people in your life right now, at least some of them, are probably safe, probably capable of holding more of you than you've ever let them try. But your nervous system doesn't know that yet. Because it's still running an old program, a program written by a younger version of you, in circumstances that no longer exist. And here's what that means practically. The path forward isn't to force yourself to be vulnerable overnight. It's not to suddenly start announcing your pain to everyone in the room. It starts smaller. It starts with honesty with yourself first. The next time you feel something rising, grief, loneliness, frustration, that formless sadness, before you reach for the mask, just pause, one breath, and internally, honestly, name it. Not to perform it, not to share it, just to know it. I am not okay right now. That sentence, spoken only to yourself, is not weakness. It is the beginning of the longest, most important conversation you will ever have. The one you have with yourself. You smile when you're hurting because somewhere along the way, you decided that your pain was too much for the world to hold. Maybe someone taught you that. Maybe the world just made you feel it, slowly, over years of small moments where your truth went unmet. But here's what I want you to carry with you after this. The fact that you've been carrying this quietly, for so long, so skillfully, doesn't mean you have to keep carrying it alone. It means you're strong enough to have survived something difficult. And it means you might be ready, slowly, carefully, on your own terms, to put some of it down. You don't have to explain everything. You don't have to fall apart in public. You don't have to perform your healing for anyone. But you are allowed to stop performing your okayness. You are allowed to be not fine. And somewhere, in someone's presence, you are allowed to show it. The world has more room for your truth than you've been led to believe.